Hello, beautiful people. My name's Kristen. Thanks for stopping by for what I think is my favorite video to film each month, and that is the one where I just talk about the books that I read. And this month, March, was so good. I am going to break up my middle grade books that I read for middle grade March because I read quite a few of those. So I'm going to make that a separate video. So if you're interested in that, check the description box. This is all the other ones. This is my classic, my nonfiction, and just my literary fiction that I read in March, and they are all worth talking about. So I want to get right into it, not waste our time. Scroll along if there's one that you're not interested in. The first one is my classic. I read Fyodor Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov, and this is a masterpiece. I love this. It is a little chunky, and his other book, Crime and Punishment, is also fairly chunky. And those are the only two that I have read by him. But they are both fantastic if you like really kind of in your head suspenseful thrillers, waiting for the reveals, waiting for the shoe to drop. Premise of this one is there is a very dysfunctional family. The father is a pretty much self-absorbed partying type who's more interested in himself than his family and his legacy, and he's had a couple of wives, and he's had three sons that are brothers that we're following. And so we're trying to see how are they going to make their life choices. Are they going to follow after trying to please their father or make it on their own? And it's very, very also philosophical in the sense that they explore ministry, they explore the spiritual realm and the purpose behind some of life, and go trying to navigate that relationship that is broken and messed up with their dad, as well as trying to figure out exactly how they again want to marry and or not marry and succeed in life. And there's even some poignant funny moments, but the writing is just very suspenseful in the sense that I really wanted to know what was going to happen and what was going to be the next decision. There are a couple times where we're waiting for people to pass and they are giving their knowledge of life. And so it's a lot of kind of sidebars where they're actually kind of breaking that fourth wall a little bit and kind of talking to us and inviting us into that conversation. And it was just really a great classic that I don't think they get talked about enough. So totally 5-star recommend that one if you're looking for a new classic. Also read my library book, The Essential Sheehan. This is Dr. George Sheehan. I thought it was going to be a book like about his life. He was a brilliant cardiologist and avid runner, sportsman who was a prolific writer and wrote for Runner's World magazine and several different, both the scientific medical as well as the kind of sports and fitness. So he really crossed that line starting back in the 70s all the way through the 90s. I'll put what year he passed. But this is a collection of his writings, and it's grouped not chronologically how he wrote them, but in the sense of if you were training for a marathon, right? So it's like your health and fitness check. It's like the initial training. It's the scheduled races. It's the going for the marathon. It's the reflecting on kind of life in general, and then dealing with his cancer that he fought and eventually passed from. But in between each of those sections, there is just a 1 to maybe 2 page of somebody in his life explaining how they knew him and what he had done for them or what his life meant to them. And it was so poignant, y'all. It was just, it got me. And just the way that he would share his being human and yet pushing the limits of that, right? Pushing for the very best and sharing that with readers and people who followed him who are like me. They're just the average person. They're not athletes. They're not with any coaches or anything. They're just trying to be healthy and get some fitness. And so this just turned out to be such a beautiful read for me. I don't know that it would be for everybody if you're not a runner or ever been a runner or have any ties, because I'm also a cancer survivor. So it just felt very personal to me. But if you have anything along those lines, you should check that one out. Then this is Magician's Daughter. It's H.G. Parry. This is one of my all-time favorite authors. And this is her very first book. And I'm going to start out by saying I can definitely tell that this is her very first book. The pacing and the words and prose is just not quite as beautiful and gripping as her later writings. Now, having said that, this was a really fun read. You have to be kind of in the mood for that more classic fairy tale. You do have a talking rabbit character. You do have a man who's a magician that turns into a raven. You do have a human girl who is telling the story, and she is mysterious that she washed up on an island that also is mysterious and only appears every 7 years, and magic is disappearing from the world, and there are people trying to basically hoard it or smuggle it or bring it back. But this is the story of that adventure of these kind of three main characters who are trying to figure out how can they restore the essence of magic into the world. And it's just a lovely, funsy little story. So really, really sweet. Really glad I read that. The last 3 books that I read in March were all fairly new releases within the past couple years. And so I'm holding them all 3 up at once to start because all 3 of these were super good, super entertaining, and had kind of some philosophical thought about the meaning of life or the purpose of life or how we make our choices. Jojo Moyes, Someone Else's Shoes. This story was like really, this would probably be an even better movie. It was one of those where you do need to suspend your disbelief a lot that coincidences happen or people just happen to meet up or cross paths or hook up, or you really need a big coincidence for people to accidentally find out different things. But if you're willing to go with that, if you're in that mindset where you're there for that kind of story, this was super engaging and fun. And I kind of knew that it was that kind of story. So if you know that going into it, you're going to have a really good time with this. It starts out in a women's locker room where there's a mix-up of bags. And so a very struggling, bad, relationships and jobs and finances and just struggling. She gets a bag with just some high-powered, Chanel and top designer clothes, including Louis Vuitton, totally one-of-a-kind shoes. And so she doesn't have time, to make it right. She has to basically live into this for the moment. And then the story just keeps progressing and again getting really far-fetched in a lot of it, but it was also really satisfying at the end. I felt like as crazy and far-fetched as it was continuing to go, it kind of wrapped back around in the end to kind of be a down-to-earth embrace, although it was really it was really a big ride. It's set mostly in a hotel. There's comings and goings and people keep crossing and it's a lot of fun. When you're ready for something like that, totally recommend that. Totally love that book. Had a good time with it. I also read The Wedding People, Alison Espach. So I thought this was a story of wedding crashers, but it's not an intentional wedding crash. It is a woman who is depressive, again, had a really hard time, end of her significant relationship, decides that life is probably not worth going on any longer, and books herself into a really ritzy hotel on a seaside to basically kind of have her final day and take her life. But the hotel has been bought out completely for a wedding. And so she's immersed into this festive, crazy relatives and friends. And it is so, I love the writing. It is so well written that I was drawn into the characters. I actually cared about all these crazy people that were coming for a wedding and their little hangups, because, you know, we all have those things going on underneath. There may be the surface event, but then there's all these secondary stories. And this kind of dwelled into it and was funny, but also poignant and meaningful, because we're talking about, you know, this decision to be or not to be, right? And so I again was in the right mindset, was here for it. When you're ready for something like that, totally recommend that. 5-star. So many 5-star reads. And going along with it, keeping with the theme, 5-star read, Liane Moriarty, Here One Moment. And it was my book of the month, so got my little bookmark there. I love Liane Moriarty, and this is one of the ones that she has done brilliantly again. And the way I kind of come to recognize her style is that she has beautiful characters that are sometimes a little quirky or a little off in some way, and there's always some twist or some event or some really funky happening that goes along with a story that makes it just really intriguing. But she always also, well, maybe not always, but normally on the ones that are really good, has a really kind of pow, this is kind of her point of the story, which I appreciate. You know, it's all that kind of crazy fun and then something really poignant. And this book does that. So what is it about? This book starts out on a plane, and a woman gets up and she kind of goes into her trance meditation, and she starts telling everybody on the plane how and when they are going to die. And by when, just the year you're born. When you're 40, you're going to be in a car wreck. When you're 50, you're going to have a heart attack. When you're 99, you're going to pass away in your sleep from normal old age. So she goes into all of this, and then shortly after that, some of them she predicts pretty quickly. And so it's disruptive. The plane's already been delayed. There's all this kind of turmoil with it. But of course, these things start to come to pass. And so then everybody's like, whoa, you know, what in the world? And I'm kind of cringy to admit this, but as I'm not a big horror person, but one day, several years ago, I was watching Final Destination. I don't know if it was even the first one. It was the one where there was a roller coaster of teenagers, and the roller coaster comes off the track and they all die. And so then something snaps or happens and they're able to stop the roller coaster from going off and everybody dying. But the final destination is coming for you. You're going to die no matter what. And it's the order of the cars, because that was the order they died based off of the crash. And so this book reminded me of that. I'm telling you all this to tell you this. That kind of, you've kind of heard the predictions, right? You're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. And you're kind of, even though you know, you're kind of on the edge of your seat going, is it going to happen? Is this the time that they're going to, you know, walk in front of the car? Oh no, don't go to work. You're going to be killed in a work accident. You know, like all these kind of little funny things that are serious. They're literally life and death, but they're told in a way that's just so engaging, and you know, you want to go along for the ride. So really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed wrapping it back up, talking about the moments of life, how we choose them, what is, you know, predestined, what is our free will, and also the story around the woman herself trying to deal with who she is and why this has happened to her and what's been going on in her life and what are the key moments that matter to her. So beautiful, wonderful, 5-star, so many 5 stars. Thank you for stopping by and hearing some of them. Leave me a comment below if you've read any of them. If you have an opinion same or different than me, that's fine. We can dialogue about that. If you want to read any of these, leave me a comment too. And, you know, come back and let me know also, because it does notify me if anybody ever makes a comment on a video even later on, come back and let me know. Did you enjoy them? Hope that you have a great day. Happy reading, y'all. Take care.